Hello and welcome to the Coaches Show on 90.1 KBBK and SportsNetUSA.net. I'm Noah Alvarez. I'll be joined alongside Ryan Osborn and Mark Pavlovich as Week 1 is officially in the books. Today we'll be looking ahead at Week 2 as the Fullerton Hornets will be taking on Riverside City College, a team that is currently ranked number 2 in the state. We'll be talking with a few of the coaches here and a few of the offensive linemen here at Fullerton College in anticipation of Saturday's game that kicks off at 1 p.m. You can listen to that game on SportsNetUSA.net. I'm here with offensive line coach, Coach Gardner. Coach, looking at Week 1 against the Golden West Rustlers, how did you feel your offensive line did in that performance?
Actually, they did pretty good. They lined up in a 30 front, which is something we don't see a lot of, and our guys had a lot of mental time in. We had to get adjust for it. We generally see 40 fronts there. Did an excellent job in picking it up. I like to see a little bit more aggression. We'll be a little bit more aggressive with Riverside this week, but for the most part, we were Simon sound.
Now, speaking of Riverside, much faster defensive front. What is the game plan as far as what are you going to attack on the Riverside front?
Well, with Riverside, a lot of it, they negate their own speed because they're a read and react defense. So if you'll see their guys fire off the ball quickly, they like to get their hands on you and read. So the big thing for my guys this week is sticking on to them. Like I said, we're working on, once we get our hands on them, take them where they don't want to go. So again, it's back to that aggression. If we're aggressive with that read and react defense, we should be able to push them off the ball most of the game.
How important is establishing the run game going to be against the Riverside?
It's imperative because right now what they want to do with the defense they showed this weekend is they want to take away our mid-range to our deep passing game. They're scared of being beat up top where they're given a five-man box. We have to, like I said, without a doubt, block the five up front and move the ball. And like I said, I have the guys this year to do it. We have the size, we have the heart that we can absolutely dictate this game up front this week.
So speaking of the players on your offensive line, who are some of those guys that you really need to step up against Riverside?
One of the main ones here is my right tackle, Drake Staten. He's, like I say, transferred in for us here. He's going to be imperative on that right side there because they usually have their left end as their rush in. Then I have a young guard in Darren Shinton that is, like I say, big guy. He's a mauler. And he's the guy that can, when we can start running downhill, that can move guys. And then I also have my starting left guard and just Nate. I forgot Nate's last name there, Nate Ramirez, who is like I say one of my solid, like I say, he's one of my steady guys here as we run a power down their throat. He's going to be banging on those linebackers all game.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you had 5 offensive linemen go on to the D1 level last year from last year's team. How do you continue to rebuild and reload, especially at the community college level, and continue to put out strong offensive line groups year after year?
What it is the expectation of when you come to Fullerton. We recruit guys that their main focus on is we win, secondly, it's their ability to transfer on. So the guys that are looking forward to, again, being strong academically in the classroom and put in the work on the field, those equate to being able to transfer because the four-year schools are going to come to Fullerton first. Nobody has beat us on the field in 30 games. So D1 coaches know that, so when they make their stops and their rounds, they're out here to see who our guys are and who's making that offense run.
Is that a huge recruiting advantage, the fact that you can get these looks to these players versus other community colleges?
Absolutely. And a lot of like I say, I was a former coach at RCC, and we had the same numbers here, but the difference in here versus when I coached at Riverside here is just the mentality here first is the academics along with the football that allows our guys to be in a position to be able to graduate and get out to four-year universities.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time, Coach Gardner. Looking forward to Saturday. I'm here with offensive lineman Drake Staten and Darren Washington. I'm going to start with you, Drake. Tell me how it was your first game, Golden West College, especially transferring from where you did. Talk about the experience as far as playing at Fullerton College.
So far, I think the experience, it was pretty good. I think it's going to be imperative this week that we build on kind of our mistakes because we had a lot of assignment blows as far as effort and not going to the right guys. But I think this week we're preparing well and we're going to have a good output.
What have been some of the main focal points as far as the offensive line and basically getting the corrections fixed from week 1 on over to week 2?
I think the main focus is just going to be aggression because we had a lot of plays where we could have blown the guy up, got to the end zone, and could have converted early within the drive instead of having 16-play drives as far as being hard on our legs. So this week is just going to be about tempo, getting set, getting on the ball, getting ready to go, and getting in the end zone.
So after watching plenty of film against Riverside thus far, how do you feel like your best attack is going forward against Riverside?
I think our best attack is just going to be beating them off the ball because they're a team that likes to come off the ball and kind of read and react. If we come out and hit them in the mouth early, they're going to lay down quickly.
So I'm going to transfer over to Darren. Darren, big matchup against week 2 against the RCC Tigers. What are you most looking forward to in the matchup?
I'm most looking forward to us being physical and getting off the ball and just putting people on the back.
So tell me, what has been some of the main focus points that Coach Gardner has been working with you guys during the practice this week?
Main points is just being physical and locking on and just not letting go of your man and fighting till the play's over.
So you mentioned being physical. Are you more of a run blocker than a pass blocker?
I like down blocking.
Okay. So talk about the week 1 performance too against Golden West. How did you feel you did especially in the season opener for Fullerton College?
I think I did good. As a whole team, we did good too.
What are some area for improvements going forward?
Just getting assignments and being more assignment-wise, picking up blocks.
All right, well, thank you very much for both of your time. Best of luck to you Saturday. I'm here with Matthew Martinez and Nate Ramirez of the offensive line for Fullerton College, and I'm going to start with Matthew. Talk about your decision to come to Fullerton now in your sophomore year too. Talk about how some of the responsibilities have changed for you.
Came here because wanted to play football, definitely wanted to win. Both my brothers came here, had successful seasons here, and I just wanted to, take part in that legacy too, get some wins on the football field. And we definitely have some responsibility here, especially as the heart of the team here, offensive line. And we just got to go out banging every single game.
So what do you feel like some of the strengths are of this year's offensive line compared to the offensive lines your brothers played for in Fullerton College's past?
Yeah, I think for our offensive line, I think we're a lot brighter. We're more of a unit together. We got a closer bond as teammates, and our friendship and our bond is really going to get us through the season.
And talk about the influence and the impact of Coach Gardner's on that bond of your offensive line.
Yeah, Coach Gardner, he stepped in towards the end of the summer. We had a resignation of our old offensive line coach. Coach Gardner stepped up. He's really putting in the effort for us. He's really helping us out, doing what he needs to be doing what we need to do, and we're all working together.
So I'm going to turn it over to redshirt freshman Nate Ramirez. Nate, tell me about your decision to come to Fullerton College and then also sitting out that year, and then talk about how your responsibilities have changed and how you planned in the offseason.
So I'm a bounce back, and I went to a D2 in Iowa, and it just wasn't for me, so I came back to my hometown. And Fullerton was definitely the best fit. It's a good winning program. They've been there before. They know how to win, and I just want to be in a winning program.
So talk about the win last week in week 1 against the Golden West Rustlers. What did you feel like you guys did the best in that game?
It was a different defense we went up against. We went up against 3 men down on the line, so it was a different type of thing. We had to adjust the whole time, but I definitely feel like we did better than what we expected. But I feel like next week I will come out week 2 at Riverside, and it will be way different.
Speaking of Riverside, talk to me about the different in fronts compared to Golden West front that you saw in week 1.
They definitely have a front that really likes to use their hands. They're pretty aggressive. But I think with the practice that we've been putting in, the work that we've been putting in the weight room and on the field this week, I think that we're really ready for them.
How are some of those things that you've been working on practice going to translate into the game on Saturday?
We're definitely going to be more aggressive off the ball. Last week we weren't aggressive enough, we feel like, so we're definitely going to come out hitting way harder, easily.
Thank you very much. That was Nate Ramirez and Matthew Martinez of the offensive line for Fullerton College. Now I'll turn it over to Ryan Osborn, who's going to recap some of the bigger matchups across the state this past weekend, along with taking a deeper look at the Riverside City College team Fullerton will be facing on Saturday.
Thank you very much, Noah, as we take a look at the SCFA and CCCAA results from this last weekend. We begin things over at Laney College, where the Eagles hosted Modesto City College. The Eagles are the defending state champions in the state of California. However, they're going to be fighting uphill the rest of the way as they suffered a tough loss to Modesto in week number 1. The storyline in this game was the quickness that Laney jumped out of the gate. After the opening kickoff, Laney drove right down the field and capped off a 75-yard drive with a 44-yard touchdown pass from Ryan Mackey to Marcus Hill Jr. to make it 7-0. Immediately following, the Eagles would get another chance as Modesto fumbled the kickoff return and Laney would go up 13-0 after a 4-yard touchdown pass from Ryan Mackey. The Eagles looked terrific early on. However, Modesto would get back in it with a strike on the very next drive that ended with Danny Velasquez running into the end zone from 8 yards out to make it 13-7. In the first 6 minutes and 11 seconds worth of playing time, there were 20 points scored, 1 turnover, and 2 plays of over 50 yards. There would be no scoring in the second, as Modesto would be on the receiving end of 4 of the next 5 scoring drives. Modesto City College didn't allow Laney to get on the board after a Ryan Mackey 61-yard touchdown pass to Chris Shekels in the third quarter. After that, they never got another score. Modesto outgained Laney. They were more efficient on third down and controlled the possession clock by nearly 10 minutes. What's even more mind-boggling is the fact that Modesto won the game even though they turned the ball over 3 more times than the Eagles. So Modesto with a huge, surprising win in week number 1 to start us off here in the state of California. We follow it up with one of the best matchups in the state last year. Reedley and De Anza were 2 of the best teams in California. However, they played in the American Conference, so they didn't necessarily get the respect that they should have deserved last year. Both of those 2 teams found themselves in the American Conference title game undefeated. De Anza was able to get the win in that one, as we mentioned last week, and hand Reedley their only loss of the season. So you switch it over to this year, and you find that both squads would face each other in week number 1. Reedley started the game off by shooting out of the gate with a forced safety just 30 seconds into the game, following it up with a touchdown only 26 seconds later. The Tigers had 60 rushing yards and 2 scores, and the first minute wasn't even done yet. De Anza would get on the board late in the first with a Javon Stern 2-yard touchdown run, which capped off a 6-play, 75-yard drive to make it 9-7. However, Reedley would score 4 unanswered touchdowns from the second to the beginning of the fourth quarter. Armand Hickson had 3 touchdown tosses, and Andy Pierre had 2 scoring receptions to make it 37-7. After that, now in the third quarter and the fourth quarter, De Anza scored on 3 of the next 5 drives that they had, but it wouldn't be enough as the Tigers took home the victory. Reedley gained nearly 500 yards of total offense and brought in 219 rushing yards as well. Armand Hickson led the charge by going 15 of 23 from the quarterbacking position with 197 and 3 touchdowns. Andy Pierre had 4 receptions for 100 yards and 2 scores in the receiving game, and Jamon Chambers was the leading rusher with 9 attempts for 95 yards and a touchdown. So Reedley College finally gets their revenge on De Anza for the championship game last year. It may not have the same ramifications, but you know that for Reedley, that was a huge deal to be able to take down De Anza and get just a little bit of a sense of revenge from what they did to them last year. So we're switching over to another matchup, but we stay in Northern California as we take a look at the Sacramento rivalry between American River and Sacramento City College. Both teams are separated by just 11.2 miles total. The game wouldn't particularly be a high-scoring affair for either sides, but it was dominated by American River. The final score would be 27-0. That's right, American River shut out Sacramento City College. But it was also a game that was marred in penalties. 21 total penalties for 320 combined yards. Marco Baldacchino wasn't terribly efficient as the quarterback for American River. He finished with a final line of 5 for 20, going 25% throwing with a total of 77 yards and a touchdown toss. Yet his backup Grant Peterson came in and was a perfect 7 for 7 for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. The American River defense was pretty good too. They forced 4 fumbles and kept Sacramento City College from gaining at least 300 yards of total offense. I'm not talking about just passing or just rushing. Total offense. American River once again, final score 27-0. American River once again gets the victory in their rivalry matchup of the season, 27-0. We send it down to Southern California now as two ranked opponents would face each other in week number 1 in a matchup. I guess you could say if it was any other week, you would think of it as possibly the highlight of community college football. You have one team who's in the top 10, another team who's in the top 17, in Bakersfield and Mount Sac going against each other. And to say that that game, once it was all said and done, was all Mount Sac is an understatement. The Mounties won it by a final of 37-7. The Mounties started the scoring off with a Rashad White 13-yard touchdown run late in the first quarter to make it 7-0. After a 3-and-out by the Renegades, Mount Sac controlled the football for nearly 6 minutes as they drove upfield, eventually ending with Zach Rangel tossing a 20-yard touchdown pass to Brandon Quinones to make it 13-0. 2 straight scores for Mount Sac, and they were up. The Bakersfield offense never really got off the ground, as they never got a scoring drive in the entire afternoon. The only points that Bakersfield scored came on a Fanu Maui 28-yard interception return for a touchdown in the second quarter. That would be it. That's the only way that Bakersfield got on the board, was because their defense got a pick 6. The offense just did not look good for Bakersfield all afternoon. Yet, the Mounties would end up getting each of their next 3 drives to end in touchdown scores. Mount Sac gained over 420 yards of offense to Bakersfield's just 157. The Renegades got only 39 yards from their ground attack, under 40 yards from their rushing attack, as the Mounties on the other side ground down Bakersfield's defense with over 230 yards rushing. Rashad White looked absolutely terrific as he grabbed 144 yards on just 13 attempts with 2 scores and a long of 54 yards. Brandon Weigel was the leader on offense for Bakersfield as he went 11 for 22 with 115 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions. With the victory, Mount Sac goes up to 1-0, while the Renegades will drop to 0-1. That brings us to the biggest game of the week. Out in Santa Clarita, the Saddleback Gauchos travel to face the Canyons Cougars in a big matchup of 2 teams who were in the top 11 in the state last week. The Gauchos, however, would end up winning it big time. 25 points was the final margin of victory, as the Gauchos rode their hot start in the game to the win. Saddleback began with an Isaiah Garcia touchdown pass from Chance Nolan and a 2-point conversion on their very first drive. It took them 3 minutes and about 45 seconds, but on their first drive, they're in the end zone. They followed it up with a safety, so that was 10-0 in the first quarter. After a touchdown and a field goal from Canyons, Saddleback would get back on the board with, get this, 5 out of the next 6 scoring plays from either of these 2 teams. Saddleback was just taking it to Canyons over and over and over. The Gauchos dominated the matchup. Saddleback outgained Canyons 561 yards to 253. They also grabbed 33 first downs. Saddleback found great success in the air as they threw for nearly 400 yards. Chance Nolan led the way with 297 yards on 24 for 30 passing and 4 touchdowns. Now, Nolan also led the team in rushing with 92 yards on the ground, and to be honest, I think he should have been selected as the Offensive Player of the Week in the SCFA. However, we'll get to more on that in just a little bit. Devin Friedland, who followed up Chance Nolan at the quarterbacking position, he ended up having a 7 for 10 performance for 100 yards and 1 touchdown strike. Liam Eldridge had himself a game. 10 receptions for 169 yards and 3 touchdowns. On the other side, Armani Eden went 19 for 34 for 211 and a touchdown for Canyons. But he would be the bright spot. That would be it for Canyons College, as they just couldn't keep up with Saddleback. And Saddleback looks like they're going to be the big team to beat in Southern California if they can keep up this performance the rest of the way. With the games wrapped up last Saturday, well, I guess we are leaving one out, but we'll get to that one. That's the RCC game against El Camino in just a little bit. But with those games wrapped up, we now take a look at the Conference Players of the Week here in Southern California. We begin right where we left off for Saddleback. Liam Eldridge, with his 10 receptions for 169 yards and 3 scores, led all National Division receivers. He ends up as the Offensive Player of the Week. Again, I believe that Chance Nolan may have deserved it just a little bit more, considering that he had 297 yards in the air, 24 for 30 passing, 4 touchdowns, and he led his team in rushing with 92 yards as well. However, Saddleback nonetheless does get the Offensive Player of the Week. On the defensive side of the football, Mount Sac got themselves an award. Aeneas Foreman, the 6'2" linebacker out of Baltimore, grabbed 4 tackles and 2 sacks, in addition to recovering 2 fumbles as well. So Aeneas Foreman and Liam Eldridge, the 2 offensive and defensive players of the week in the SCFA. Now let's take a look at what Riverside did this last weekend. They took on El Camino at home, and they won it 55-17. Riverside just, well, plain and simple, they looked pretty good. They scored 14 points in the first quarter, 13 in the second, 14 in the third, and another 14 in the fourth, as they just never let up on El Camino. It started off with Mike Irwin, who had a 2-yard touchdown run just 2 minutes into the game. You follow it up near the end of the first quarter. Riverside gets themselves a 25-yard touchdown pass that goes from Mike Irwin to Giovanni Sanders to make it 14-0. Gades Campbell had a 32-yard field goal for El Camino. That would be their only score until 6:25 left to go in the second quarter. But it was Riverside for most of this one, because you take a look at the main offensive statistics. 26 first downs for the RCC Tigers compared to just 6 for El Camino. 14 first downs in the air for Riverside, 4 for El Camino. Riverside was 27% on third down, 4 of 15, and they were 1 for 1 on fourth down. They had 486 yards of total offense, but that may not even be the most impressive thing. You switch it over to see what the defense did for RCC, and you see that they only gave up 124 yards of total offense. El Camino had no chance against RCC. 124 of total offense, just 88 yards passing, and 36 yards rushing for El Camino on the afternoon at Riverside. On the other side, Riverside 333 yards passing on 19 of 33, and rushing attempts, they had 49 for 153. You take a look at the leaders. Mike Irwin was the leader passing-wise for Riverside, as he went 11 for 18 for 233 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Behind him was Jacob Barlage, who went 8 for 15 for 100 yards and 1 touchdown strike as well. Quarterbacking position for El Camino, the best that they got was Herman Gotoy, who went 6 for 12 for 73 yards, no touchdowns. Jake Novello went 1 for 3, 11 yards and an interception. And then Dylan Lemley went 1 for 8 for 4 yards and an interception as well. The running game, well, it was no contest. While RCC really spread it around between Thomas Kinslow, Jamon McLaury, Cameron Bosley, and Noah Perez, each of them getting 22 yards or more, you switch over to El Camino and you see that they had Sean Prejean, who had 11 attempts for 20 yards. That was the leader all afternoon for El Camino College. There was just really no contest when it came to RCC versus El Camino in the run game. Receiving-wise, Tariq Johnson, 1 reception for 41 yards for El Camino. On the other side, Tyler Kennedy had 4 receptions for 68 yards and an average of 17 each and a score. Jarrell Anderson, 2 receptions, 68 yards, a touchdown. Giovanni Sanders, 3 receptions, 50 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Dylan Laurent had 2 receptions for 20 yards and 1 touchdown as well. You take a look at the defensive statistics, and the tackles for loss were big time for RCC. They had 8 tackles for loss, a total of 35 yards that were lost for El Camino. And on the other side, RCC only gave up a total of just 3 tackles for loss for El Camino. The El Camino defense tried. They did get an interception. They did force a fumble, and they recovered it for a combined 32 yards. However, it was all RCC's defense as they got an interception, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 forced fumbles, 3 breakups, and 1 block kick as well. That's taking a look at RCC and what they have to offer against the Fullerton College Hornets. Let's send it back over to Noah and see what he's got going on here at Fullerton's campus besides the football team.
Thank you, Ryan. This week we'll be checking in on the women's volleyball team, followed by the women's water polo team. The Hornets volleyball team began their season late in August with a victory versus Santa Barbara at the Bakersfield tournament. They swept the Vaqueros thanks to great play from their outside hitter Sailor Frew. The sophomore out of Norco High School finished the match with 11 kills, 5 aces, and led the Hornets with 16 points. However, the following match, Fullerton College was swept by Bakersfield College as the Renegades proved to be too much for the Hornets to handle. Sophomore outside hitter Penelope Zapata scored 17 points for Bakersfield in the victory. In the third match of the season, the Hornets fell short to a well-rounded Rio Hondo team, losing by a score of 3-1. Megan Glennie's squad bounced back last weekend with a victory over LA Harbor Friday, September 6th. Frew led the way and finished with 16 kills and 22 digs in the sweep, while freshman Faith Webb followed with 10 kills and 18 digs of her own. Fullerton had a quick turnaround and hosted El Camino College on Saturday, September 7th. It was a back-and-forth match in which the Hornets had a 2-1 lead after 3 sets. But Fullerton dropped the last 2 sets by scores of 25-22 and then 15-12, resulting in a loss. Frew was spectacular once again despite the losing effort, scoring 24 points and tallying 23 kills along with 22 digs. The first CCC WVCA rankings of 2019 came out September 9th, and Fullerton was left out of the top 25 despite being ranked 23rd at the end of last season. Opponents El Camino, who opened up 18th, and Bakersfield, who opened up 4th, made it into the top 25. Orange Empire Conference opponents Irvine Valley, Orange Coast, Golden West, and Cypress College each found themselves ranked inside the top 25. The Hornets will face 2 ranked teams next week, Long Beach City College, who opened up 21st, and then Irvine Valley College, who opened up 2nd. Moving on to women's water polo, they made a splash at the Saddleback College tournament the weekend of September 7th. Gabriel Martinez's team defeated the likes of Grossmont, Palomar, Sierra, and Ventura College by a combined score of 69-14. They are coming off a season in which they had a heartbreaking loss to Sierra College in the state championship. Martinez, who was named Orange Empire Conference Coach of the Year last season, returns 10 players in 2019, including 8 of their top goal scorers. Sophomore Alexandra Lopez led the charge in scoring for the Hornets with 12 goals in the Saddleback tournament. They begin conference play on the 18th of September as they take on Riverside City College and look to build off an impressive 2018 season. Just a friendly reminder, the Fullerton Hornets will be taking on Riverside City College Saturday, 1 o'clock. Mark Pavlovich and Corey Nayland will be on the call from Chappelle Stadium. That will wrap up this week's edition of The Coaches Show. For Ryan Osborn, Mark Pavlovich, I'm Noah Alvarez. Thanks for tuning in to The Coaches Show on 90.1 KBPK and SportsNetUSA.net.